All of us here in Defiant Wrestling are still getting our breath back from what was an unbelievable weekend of action at Unstoppable on Saturday and Loaded on Sunday. The ReLoaded podcast on the air once again. Dave Bradshaw here with you and James R. Kennedy alongside me as always. James, what a weekend of action we just saw.
It sure was. I mean, Unstoppable. You know, previously Dave Bradshaw, you know me. Everywhere we visit in Defiant Wrestling, I have some throwaway cheap comment about either the hotels, the people who live in that city, the smell around the place, you know, everything, the fashion sense, everything. But I have to say, Manchester were wonderful. What a place, what a place, what a crowd. That's all I'm saying, and I don't say that often. You know, what a way to start this out for me, giving credit to a place like Manchester. But in terms of that crowd who were in the house for Unstoppable, wow, brilliant stuff.
You're okay?
I think I've had a knock to the head, actually. Don't worry, it'll wear off soon and I'll be back to my beautiful, regular self.
I don't think I've ever heard you compliment a city that we've been to. Ever.
Well, see, before Unstoppable, I was thinking, God, why are we in Manchester? Of all places, we could be anywhere in the world with the roster we have, and we choose Manchester? But again, that crowd were red hot, and I have to say, I think that had something to do with the way we kicked things off. That tag team match, that was something else. Almost blew the roof off the building, and Manchester, from that point on, they were right with us. They loved everything they saw, and rightfully so, because it was one hell of a show.
All right, well, we're going to talk about a lot of what happened at Unstoppable and a little bit about Loaded as well as we go through today. Thank you for all your questions. You've been keeping them coming throughout the past few days, ever since Unstoppable. If you want to join the conversation online, of course, you can tweet us at DefiantRes. That's at Defiant, W-R-E-S. Use the hashtag WeAreDefiant to join the conversation. We have had a few thoughts and questions from Defiant fans, and since you're talking about that opening tag match, what a way to start Unstoppable it was, as Gabriel Kidd and Rory Coyle claimed victory over Primate and Joe Hendry. We've had one question about that. This is from Tom at TomPledger1998. He says, what do you think will happen now with Primate? Do you think he will remain with Defiant? What is his future in Defiant following that defeat at Unstoppable? Have you got any thoughts on that? You know Primate better than I do.
Well, Primate, you know, he marches to the beat of his own drum. No one, and I mean no one, and I've witnessed this firsthand because, believe me, I tried. When I managed the guy, I tried to give him advice. I tried to tell him what to do, quite frankly. He wasn't having any of it. And, you know, you can go back through the archives and see the really super violent matches he had with Rampage and others. That was nothing to do with me, by the way. I just stood there like an innocent bystander and watched in horror, quite frankly. As far as where Primate goes next, you know, it's a tough one because that's a bitter pill to swallow, what happened at Unstoppable. You know, Rory Coyle has waited in the wings and watched, almost stalked Primate for around 2 years now. And then he gets a win on pay-per-view in front of a worldwide audience over Primate. That one has to hurt. I mean, would you agree that Primate's probably in a very dark place mentally right now? I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much all or nothing for everyone involved, right? Particularly for Primate, particularly for Rory Coyle. In both those men's cases, they'd had so much pent-up rage at each other for so long. In Coyle's case, well over 800 days. In Primate's case, certainly since Coyle betrayed him and aligned himself with Gabriel Kidd. So it was always going to be ecstasy for one and despair for the other. And it turned out, of course, as you say, that Primate was the one on the losing end. And I don't know, it was the expression on his face as he slowly got to his feet after the match had finished and Coyle had left and everyone else had left. Primate was in the ring on his own, looked like a man who was defeated. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't had any word from anyone in Defiant management or from Primate himself. I don't have any inside scoop for you on what will happen next with Primate, but to have invested so much of yourself emotionally into getting revenge against those two men, Coyle and Kidd, and then to not get it done, I think puts him in a very difficult position in terms of where he goes next.
Oh, it really does. It really, really does. And almost to answer the question that this person sent into us, I don't think we can answer it, really. I think the only man who can answer that question is Primate, and he ain't talking right now. He's probably somewhere smashing things up as we speak. Maybe seeking revenge, maybe looking to move on with his life. I don't think we have the answer to this.
All right, we've had some questions about our main event as well, so we'll go from the first match of Unstoppable to the last. We're going to talk a lot more about the world title scene next week, I think, but we've got a few questions now, so let's briefly look at what happened there. As I'm sure most of you know by now, Rampage successfully defended the Defiant World Championship against David Starr in our main event on Saturday night in what was a hell of a world title match. Questions abounding now about what happens next. Someone asking, this is Chris Hayfield. He's at Chris Hayfield 96. Thank you for your question, Chris, asking, where does David Starr go from here? Should he push for another match against Rampage, go for the Internet Championship again, or does he just keep on doing what he's doing and keep on proving that he's the best in Defiant? Kimmy, who's a regular contributor to the show, he's asking, with Pac asking for suitable competition on Loaded a couple of weeks ago, will he be next in line for a title shot at Rampage? And then we've also got several people asking what's next for Rampage. So briefly, as I say, we'll talk about this in much more depth next week. Rampage victorious, headed now into what will be presumably now 300 days as champion. He's just a week or so away from that landmark. I don't know. What happens next for Rampage? What happens next for Starr?
There's so many questions. Almost, you're asking all these questions and I almost feel clueless to give you the answers, because as much as Primate looked distraught after what happened at Unstoppable, did you see the expression on David Starr's face? Now, it was almost like, that chase for glory in the Ringmaster tournament, the No Regrets Rumble last year, a failure to capture the Internet Championship, and then latterly the Defiant World Heavyweight Championship. It's all started to sink in and get on top of the product, because his face said it all. That expression was one of supreme sorrow. And beforehand, listen, we've seen David Starr get upset. We've seen him fire up. I mean, he said he was going to kick the crap out of Rampage, and he didn't use that language. But that was a different look in his face. It really was. As for where he goes next, listen, David Starr's one hell of a professional wrestler, but in my humble opinion, after losing to Rampage the way he did, he has no rightful claim to a rematch. Pac, maybe he's, the next man in line. I'm sure Rampage would relish that challenge, certainly wouldn't duck it. So many unanswered questions coming out of Unstoppable. That's just the way it is. That's the way it happens in Defiant Wrestling. This is such an ultra competitive roster that we have, where wins and losses, unlike a lot of places, they mean something here. And David Starr, he's currently, you talk about Primate being in a dark place, David Starr's probably in the darkest place of all, because even he probably has no idea where he turns to next.
Yeah, I agree. I think of those three who we've been talking about here, Rampage, I think it's a relatively easy answer to the question, what next for Rampage? More of the same. I mean, in terms of Rampage, he's proven time and again, did it once more at Unstoppable, that he is the dominant force here in Defiant. So for Rampage, what's next is just to face whoever comes next. Whoever is presented to him next as the number one contender. He's proven he's willing and more than capable of taking on all comers. So for Rampage, that's where I see him going, just keeping that championship, aiming to get past that 1 year mark and onwards. Pac, I think, will obviously be looking for a title shot sooner rather than later. Whether he gets that granted to him is obviously down to our general manager, General Amin. So those two, it's kind of easy, at least what they want to do next. But I agree, David Starr is a much harder, much more difficult question now, because we've said so many times in the build-up to Unstoppable that it was a must-win. It was a must-win. He's been the nearly man so many times. He's just upped his game. It felt like he'd upped his game those few more notches headed into Unstoppable. It felt like, I said it, I think, on commentary on Saturday night. It felt like there was something in the air, like it was David Starr's moment, and for that to ultimately not come true gives him a lot of questions to ask himself, let alone what questions it leaves for the Defiant management now. There's so many people queuing up for a shot at the world title that I don't know, even if David Starr could get himself mentally in a place where he goes, yeah, you know what, I'm ready to immediately get back on the horse and ask for another title shot. I mean, does he get granted that, given how many other people are waiting in line? It's tricky. It's kind of tricky.
It is. That's the perfect word for it, is tricky. Because David Starr, as talented as he undoubtedly is, he lost, fair and square. He has to go to the back of the queue. That's just the way things work around here in Defiant Wrestling. No one is owed anything. You must earn it. And in my opinion, even though he came up short on a lot of occasions, David Starr ultimately did earn that opportunity against Rampage. He really did. But he lost. And now, you know, as I said, he has no rightful claim to a rematch. That's just my opinion. You know, we'll see what the general manager, oh God, can you imagine what he has in mind? But anyway, my opinions aside about the GM, we will see what General Amin has to say about it, and it'll be super interesting to see where he wants to go from here.
I mean, I would suspect that Starr won't be in line for an immediate rematch. I don't think anyone will reasonably claim now that David Starr automatically gets another title shot. So I would think if he would like to try again, as I'm sure hopefully he will once he's had time to digest this defeat on Saturday, he's going to have to earn it somehow. You know, there'll be opportunities, I'm sure, and he's in that kind of upper tier of the Defiant roster where he will be placed into those positions where he has the chance to earn it, whether it's in, you know, we know the Magnificent 7 pay-per-view is coming up. We still don't know the details of what the Magnificent 7 match will entail this year. Hopefully we'll find out about that soon. Maybe that's one option for him. I don't know. Maybe, you know, we had the No Regrets Rumble last year. We haven't had that announced again yet this year. I don't know if that's coming up for sure. We're still waiting to hear, but that kind of thing. You know, maybe he has to throw himself into one of those multi-man situations where it's kind of a scramble and one person emerges as a number one contender. But that I would think has got to be the next step for David Starr, is one of those sorts of avenues, because otherwise I don't see how he gets another title shot.
I'd say so, and you brought it up there, Bradshaw, throwing yourself into a situation. Well, that's exactly what did they call themselves? CC Blah? Chris Brooks and Lucky Kid. That's exactly what they did at Unstoppable. You know, certainly for Chris Brooks, there were no guarantees about what kind of partner Lucky Kid was going to be, but he turned out to be quite a damn good partner, and they came within an inch of taking the Defiant Tag Team titles away from Aussie Open, who themselves, much like Rampage, they're coming up for about 300 days as champs. And now, next week on Loaded, I believe they've got a fresh challenge. We'll talk about that in a bit, but my point is, you have so many tag teams here in Defiant Wrestling who are literally throwing themselves head first into the mix. The Dynamic Duo, the South Coast Connection, and we've got Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm coming up as well, two legends of the UK scene. This tag team division is hotting up, and maybe that's a byproduct of the fact that Aussie Open, they've dominated it for so long.
All right, well, you know, let's go there now. Why don't we talk about that now? We've actually had a question on that as well. This is from Kieran, another regular listener to the show. Kieran at Prestige Trio says, who do you see as being next in line for Aussie Open as tag titles? Will it be SCC, one of the two new teams that's going to be debuting in the next couple of weeks here on Loaded? Maybe CCK again, the Anti-Fun Police. Who do we see is next in line? Okay, first of all, what a match on Saturday. I think, with no disrespect to any of the other matches, I think probably match of the night, that tag team title match, for me at least, with Aussie Open defending it again. And one of the reasons it's match of the night is because I didn't expect it to be at all. You know, I didn't expect such a makeshift team as Chris Brooks and Lucky Kid to be able to somehow be a coherent enough, cohesive enough unit to run Aussie Open close. But it was just, I think I put on Twitter earlier this week, I'm trying to think if we've ever had a better tag team match in Defiant history, and it's got to be top 3. I mean, it was stunning. We were out of our seats. I lost my voice towards the end. I mean, it was incredible the amount of times that Brooks and Lucky Kid came within a split second of winning those tag titles.
Well, not to agree with you too many times, but you're right. And you're right on 2 points there, Bradshaw, because firstly, you know, I can't argue with you that was match of the night. You know, you say you lost your voice, and thank God for that. But listen, all jokes aside, my main point is no one, and I mean no one, expected Lucky Kid to be a successful tag team partner for Chris Brooks. And I said it before, Chris Brooks wouldn't have expected it either. No one in the world thought that this would be match of the night, and I don't mean that as a slight on anyone involved. All I mean is that Aussie Open have been so dominant. You know, they have taken on all comers. They have destroyed everything in their path. Whatever phrase you want to throw at it, they have done it. And then all of a sudden, here comes this loony, Lucky Kid, and he teams with Chris Brooks, who has went at Aussie Open before with his regular tag team partner and come up short. So no one expected it, but what a match we got. And yes, we were out of our seats.
Should we have expected it? Actually, in hindsight, because as the match progressed, we were starting to talk a little bit about how, well, actually, yeah, it was an unconventional pairing, but Brooks obviously is a very experienced tag team wrestler in CCK. He's won titles up and down the country. Lucky Kid in Die Jungen Löwen, who have competed in Defiant before, him with his mentor Tarkan Aslan. They've won championships all across Europe as well. So actually, maybe we and possibly Aussie Open and certainly a lot of fans as well underestimated how good this team would be coming into the match.
I can't tell what to think, to be honest, because, I can't really tell if Chris Brooks and Lucky Kid somehow got together before the match and came in with a game plan, or if it was just happenstance. It just happened organically mid-match. And yes, individually they are two incredibly talented wrestlers, but again, it's Aussie Open we're talking about. Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis have found this chemistry that no other tag team on the planet has been able to match. Maybe they were caught off guard. There's another point. As we say, they couldn't have been expecting that kind of challenge. Not from two guys who have never teamed together before anyway. Maybe they were caught off guard, but in the end, Aussie Open did what they always do. They came out on top, and now, as we say, they move on to a fresh challenge against Team White Wolf, who are a new team in Defiant Wrestling we've never seen before. They'll clash with Aussie Open next week on Loaded. As I brought up earlier, Dave, you've got the dynamic duo, you've got the South Coast connection, you've got incoming tag teams left, right and centre. So Aussie Open, they don't have any time to relax.
I think it's a compliment to Aussie Open that Defiant have had to cast the net more widely to find a team that might be able to challenge them. And obviously in this case have cast it as far as Spain. Team White Wolf, for those of you who haven't heard of them, A-Kid and Carlos Romo, just about the most successful tag team in Spanish wrestling right now. I've never seen Romo wrestle before, actually, interestingly, but A-Kid I have. I've seen him live, I've commentated on him before, but also there's a hell of a match he had over in Spain against Zack Sabre Jr., which you can find on YouTube if you want, last year, and he is something. I mean, Carlos Romo A-Kid, I expect will be just the kind of challenge that we need to face Aussie Open at this point. So I'm really excited for Loaded this Sunday. It's a non-title match against Team White Wolf, but obviously if they were to win it, you've got to think, yes, they would be quite probably the new #1 contenders. In terms of the other teams you talked about very briefly, dynamic duo, again, the Billington is just 15 and 17 years old, respectively. They beat the Models on Loaded on Sunday. I mean, that is insane. Danny Hope and Joey Hayes are just about one of the most experienced tag teams on the entirety of the British scene. And to be able to do that in what was their first ever match in Manchester, their home city, will be a moment that the Billingtons, I'm sure, when they're looking back at their careers 30 or 40 years from now, will see as a turning point.
Well, you said it on commentary, Bradshaw. This was a moment to remember. It's certainly one that young Mark and Thomas Billington, they'll never forget. And also, to that point, this is something that Marty Jones, he'll never forget either, because he has nurtured these young men. He's given them his knowledge. He has, he might not be physically capable of wrestling, a competitive style anymore, but he certainly has bags of knowledge. And I think he lives vicariously through these young men. And he must be so proud of the dynamic duo, because the models, they're no slouches. Joey Hayes and Danny Hope, you know, if they're guilty of one thing, perhaps the only mistake they're guilty of is that Hope provoked Marty Jones, who then got up on the ring apron and socked Hope right in the face. And that definitely changed that match. Then we saw young Thomas Billington with the tombstone pile driver, incredible strength, and then that diving headbutt, which was a throwback, if you like, to the Dynamite Kid. And they get that first ever win. Huge future these guys have. No doubt future tag team champions.
Now, one team who will be listening to this with us talking about the dynamic duo and the models will be thinking, hey, what about us? We beat both those teams. That's SCC, right? You mentioned them briefly a minute ago. The South Coast Connection, Kelly Six, and Ashley Dunn. It pains me to put them on the list of teams who might be up for a tag title shot because they're just so obnoxious now. And that's something I never thought I would say about them. I know I've expressed this a few weeks ago on this podcast as well, but they seemed like such good guys, and then they've revealed their true colours and the way that they see themselves as entitled to every opportunity going in Defiant purely because they're mates with Will Ospreay. I don't see why we should oblige them. I don't really see. I hope that General Amin isn't looking at them, despite their recent run of victories, and they have been impressive recently, annoyingly. But I hope we're not going to see them as the next team to challenge. Not because they're not good enough, it would be a great match against Aussie Open, but just because attitude must come into play somewhere. I mean, the way they smirked after knocking down Marty Jones in their match against the Dynamic Duo, the disrespect to show to a British wrestling legend like Marty Jones. I just think if you have that little regard for the people who came before you, like SCC seem to have, then you're not championship material.
You know, there's a lot to digest there. I can tell that at one point you used to be fond of Ashley Dunn and Kelly Six. You know, you maybe viewed them as two respectful young men who are doing whatever it takes. They're going about it the right way. Whatever way that is, they're going about it the right way, and they will be future champions. Something's changed when you talk about the SCC, and you're not alone. A lot of people are in that category. But if this attitude change, rightly or wrongly, results in a crack at the Defiant Tag Team Championship, say General Amin relents and gives SCC exactly what they want, it's going to vindicate their actions. You know, you can sit there and say, you know, they keep banging on about Will Ospreay. We'll tell Will Ospreay this. We'll tell the aerial assassin that. And if you want my honest appraisal of it, in my opinion, I think that they should use their contacts to their advantage. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. And for Dunn and Six, they should use a guy as powerful in pro wrestling as Will Ospreay undoubtedly is. They should use that to their advantage. Maybe Ospreay could give General Amin a call and say, listen, these boys deserve a shot. That might be all it takes for the South Coast Connection. I don't know. But it was you who said it, Bradshaw. They've beaten both the models and the dynamic duo. Maybe, just maybe, fate has stepped in and decreed that the SCC are your next Defiant Wrestling Tag Team Champions.
Well, we know that their next match here in Defiant isn't going to be against Aussie Open because, as was announced this past week, we now know that not this coming Sunday, but next Sunday, so about a week and a half from now, SCC will go 2-on-2 against another pair of British legends. Talk about Marty Jones. Well, how about Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm? And no disrespect to Marty Jones, but obviously Jones is a time of, a part of his life where he isn't able to maybe defend himself against two young athletes like Six and Dunn in the way he would have been able to years ago. But that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case with Fleisch and Storm. I mean, these guys are, yes, they are absolute pioneers in British wrestling. The things they did to help the British wrestling scene in the early 2000s in particular to survive and to be in a position where it was able to have this glory period that it's having now are phenomenal. But if Kelly Six and Ashley Dunn try to disrespect Johnny Storm or Jody Fleisch in the way that they have with Marty Jones, well, they're going to be in some trouble because Fleisch and Storm are two men I know well, and they are not going to stand for it at all.
Well, here's a question I have for you, Bradshaw. If the South Coast Connection beat Jody Fleisch, Johnny Storm in 2 weeks, or thereabouts on Loaded, would you say that they've earned a shot at Aussie Open? I would.
They won't. They absolutely won't. I promise you, for all of the success they've had recently, and it was impressive, particularly against the models who are an experienced team. But I'm telling you, Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch are different level of significance in the annals of British wrestling. And as I say, they've been competing both of them. Between them, they have about 50 years of experience, Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch. And yet, the way they fly around the ring, even though they've been competing for so long, it's like they're still in their early 20s. I mean, I honestly just do not think that is a question we'll ever have to answer, because I think SCC are finally going to get the lesson in respect that they've had coming for quite a while.
You may live to eat those words, though, because, you know, there's a reason that someone as celebrated as Will Ospreay is looked at young Dunn and Six and said, "You're my boys, I'm going to bring you into Defiant Wrestling, and then I'm going to, you know, let you spread your own wings and fly free." And that's what Ospreay has done while he wrestles around the globe. He'll be keeping a close eye on what the South Coast are doing, and he can't fail to be impressed. You know, if Will Ospreay, if you were to ask him, he would probably say, "Wow, you know, they're going further than even I thought at this stage in their careers." They are on the cusp. If you ask me, if the South Coast Connection beats Storm and Fleisch, I think it's a no-brainer. I think that General Amin must see sense for the first time in his life, by the way, and put the SCC against Aussie Open for the Defiant Tag Team titles. It's got to happen. They're crying out for it. That's why Dunn and Six approached General Amin and his assistant Simon Miller on Loaded this past week, and they pretty much said, "What do we have to do to get a title shot?" Well, I believe this is a test from General Amin, and if the SCC pass it with flying colours, you could be looking at the next challengers for Aussie Open.
It's not a test. It's not a test. It's a trap. It's a trap is what it is. Like General Amin, he is sending SCC to their professional graves by sending them in against Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm. I promise you. Like that, he's not trying to give them an opportunity to prove they deserve to be #1 contenders for whatever General Amin says. He's actually a smart guy as our general manager, and what he's doing is
no,
he's
he
putting them
isn't.
in a match. He is, and he's putting them in a match that he knows they won't win. Because then all their claims to deserving a tag team title opportunity, those won't be credible anymore. Once they lose this match, and I'm sorry to be so definitive about it, but I really, really think that the very, very strong probability is that they lose this match, and I think that is the plan all along on the part of General Amin, so that he can fundamentally remove them from contention for the tag titles because of their attitude, and he's right to do it.
Well, we saw General Amin give his assistant Simon Miller a wristband that said on it, "What would Mo do?" Mo being General Amin. What would Mo do? And he wants Miller to refer to it every time he has to make a big decision. I'm afraid I'm right, Bradshaw, and I've been right all along. We are in serious, serious trouble. If Simon Miller follows that advice, looks down at his wrist every time he has to make a decision, and sees those words, "What would Mo do?" and then thinks like General Amin, we are in big, big trouble. I implore Simon Miller right now, I'll use this podcast as a platform, and I will say, Mr. Miller, you must, appeal to General Amin's better senses, if he has any, and say the South Coast Connection deserve a shot at the tag team titles if they can defeat Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The SCC can't rack up all these victories and not get rewarded for it. That's not fair.
All right, well, let's talk about a decision by our general manager that you certainly did agree with, or at least agreed with in part on Saturday at Unstoppable, and that is we have a new hardcore champion. I use the word hardcore championship loosely because I understand it's being rebranded. Unfortunately, Jimmy Havoc, who was hardcore champion, was unable to defend the title at Unstoppable due to injury. I understand that Jimmy is on the mend and we wish him well, but in his absence, he was stripped of the title by General Amin, and that title was handed to No Fun Dunn. I'm not sure I agreed with that decision, although, to be fair to Amin, he then did hilariously make Dunn defend it against Drake, and that was something of an implosion for the anti-fun police. So given those circumstances, given the predicament that General Amin put the anti-fun police in, even though Chief Deputy Dunn is now the hardcore champion, or the the no fun champion, as he's trying to call the title now, has, again, our general manager been smarter than people realise, because in the process of giving him the title, he has absolutely demolished Dunn's foundation for being champion by sowing that discord within the anti-fun police.
Well, that's the big $1 million question that I have, to be honest, because I haven't been able to reach HT Drake since Unstoppable. Haven't been able to get his words, his thoughts, and opinions on it. But what
does he own a phone? I assume he can't work one.
Oh, come on, that's a low blow. Now, listen.
Am I wrong? Does he answer my question? Does he own a phone?
I believe so. What a ridiculous question to ask. Come
you
on.
believe so? Do you have his number?
No, but I've been trying to get it all week.
Of course. Go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
You're telling me that this man can build wrestling rings, but he doesn't own a mobile phone. This is 2019, Dave Bradshaw. Come on, of course he owns a mobile phone. But anyway, before you started with your nonsense, which was fun, by the way, and fun is no longer allowed, because the hardcore title is no more. No Fun Done has the no fun title. But my big question before you rudely interrupted me was, what does the future hold for the anti-fun police? Is Drake still a part of it? Or has No Fun Done got what he wanted all along, which is a championship in Defiant Wrestling? I don't think, to your point, Bradshaw, I don't think that General Amin is clever enough to concoct this plan to ruin the anti-fun police. I don't think he's clever enough for that. I think this was just a happy coincidence for him that this happened. But at the end of the day, we do have a new champion. It's going to be interesting to see where No Fun Done takes this championship, because some of the barbaric brawls we've witnessed over the past couple of years in Defiant Wrestling under the banner of that hardcore championship, they're gone now, consigned to the history books. This is a bold new vision for not hardcore wrestling, but anti-hardcore wrestling in Defiant.
Well, we do know where No Fun Done will be taking that championship, at least in the short term, because it has now been announced that this Sunday on Loaded, he will have the first defense of what is now the No Fun Championship against a man who loves to have fun in Lucky Kid. Kid, of course, coming right off that very near opportunity, or very near miss, if you like, to win the tag team titles. He'll get a chance to become the No Fun champion on Sunday, and I don't know, he may well be successful, because, as you say, we don't know if Dunn is going to have any backup. Well, I assume Santos will be there, because Santos clearly showed on which side his bread is buttered when his two allies were facing each other. He's clearly on Dunn's side, but I'm not sure how much help he is, to be honest. He seems like more of a hindrance than a help most of the time. So without Drake, yeah, Lucky Kid's going to have a great chance.
Well, Lucky Kid, as we witnessed at Unstoppable, always unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen when he enters the Defiant ring. But what happens here if Lucky Kid can somehow take the championship? Does it go back to being the hardcore title? What happens here? It
becomes the blah championship.
Oh, goody gumdrops. I can't wait for that. That's got money written all over it. The blah championship. Come on.
Anyway, we've got time to talk about one more championship situation. This one's interesting as well. The women's title. Now, as we know, Kanji, the women's champion, probably the most controversial women's champion we've ever had in terms of what the fans think about whether Kanji should or shouldn't be the Defiant women's champion. And that controversy has only escalated in the wake of what happened on Loaded on Sunday, when a newcomer, Lizzie Styles, on her very first night in Defiant, was able to beat Kanji in an open challenge non-title match, which has just further added fuel to those people who say Kanji doesn't have the resume, she doesn't have the talent, the experience at this point in her career to be the Defiant women's champion.
Well, if Twitter wasn't blown up before about Kanji, it sure is after Unstoppable. Lizzie Styles, quite literally coming out of nowhere, her debut in Defiant Wrestling on Loaded, and God, what a way to make an impact. On the same night, we have this incredible pay-per-view being beamed around the world. We have everyone who is anyone in Defiant Wrestling watching, and you make your debut and you defeat, non-title match or not, you defeat the Defiant Women's Champion. Kanji herself came out of nowhere, became the champion. She's impressed a lot of people. She has a lot of doubters as well. I don't think anyone is doubting the one-woman army, Lizzie Styles. What a debut. And now Styles will go on to face Roxy on this coming week's episode of Loaded. We last saw Roxy being beaten by Kanji, if you can believe that, in a women's title match late last year. Again, Bradshaw, this is another one of those situations. If Lizzie Styles wins this match against Roxy, she has to be in the conversation. She might already be in the conversation for the Defiant Women's Championship.
Well, let me put it this way, and no disrespect to Lizzie Styles, and we'll see again whether it was a fluke on Loaded this Sunday, as you say, when she faces Roxy. But if it had been Lizzie Styles in her debut against any of our other women's champions, any of our former women's champions, if it had been Lizzie Styles against Bea Priestley, or against Kaylee Ray, or against Millie McKenzie, right? Do you really think that Lizzie Styles would have won her debut?
Well, we'll never know. You know, you're almost feeding this machine where people are saying, you know, Kanji's a flash in the pan.
I'm just trying to represent. This is what a portion of a large portion of the Defiant fans are saying. So I'm just trying to represent all views on this. You know, I'm not saying this is what I think. I'm playing devil's advocate here, admittedly, but it's a valid question. Would Lizzie Styles, you know, maybe very talented, but still her first ever match in Defiant, you know, what does it say for the women's title if someone can beat the champion on that first match? And I don't think, and I think a lot of fans don't think, that any of those former champions I just listed would have lost that match.
Well, Lizzie Styles, the running knee strike that she, you know, used to defeat Kanji, I think that would knock anyone out. Bea Priestley, Lana Austin, Roxy, anyone. You can run through the list. That was a vicious knee, and she caught all of it right to the forehead, knocked Kanji out. There was no way Kanji was getting up from that. A 3 count or a 133 count. It doesn't matter. She was down for a long time after that, and it took her quite a while to collect her thoughts. So if you want my honest opinion on it, I think it's a little bit disrespectful, considering the performance that Lizzie Styles turned in, to wonder aloud, would she have beaten any other champion? We'll never know, but we might know in the future.
Okay, well, hang on a minute. Let's look at the other big women's match that happened this weekend in Defiant. If we go to Unstoppable, 24 hours prior to that Lizzie Styles Kanji match on Loaded, of course, there was that absolutely vicious Falls Count Anywhere match between Bea Priestley and Lana Austin. Bea Priestley, hopefully, from her perspective, putting to bed this ghost of Lana Austin that has been haunting her for several months now. A really impressive win. Of all the victories that Bea Priestley's had in Defiant, to put away someone like Lana Austin in that kind of environment, in what was Priestley's first ever Falls Count Anywhere match in any promotion, right? That just shows to me that Bea Priestley is a world-class women's wrestler. And I think Bea Priestley, you say, oh, well, yeah, you know, anyone would have been knocked out by that knee from Lizzie Styles. That may be true, but I don't think Bea Priestley would have been in that position to take that knee in the first place.
Well, you know, you might be right. And I'll tell you what else would have definitely knocked anyone else out, any other woman on the planet out. That vicious punt that Bea Priestley had in mind for Lana Austin, and she did right at the end of that Falls Count Anywhere match at Unstoppable. No one's getting up from that. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Lana Austin had to take a trip to the nearest hospital after that pay-per-view match. You know, it's almost like both these women knew the entire world was watching. They hated one another anyway. They had to put in a world-class performance that would catch the eye of General Amin and maybe, just maybe, get them back in the conversation for that Defiant Women's Championship. Bea Priestley's a 2-time former champion. I can't say for sure, Dave. I know you want me to commit to an answer here. I cannot say for sure whether or not Lizzie Styles would have beaten Bea Priestley. You know, we'll never know. Hopefully we will get to see that match at some point in the future. I can't give you an answer on that. All I can tell you is I was impressed by Styles, and then subsequently, later on, I was impressed by what Bea Priestley did. She's back in the convo as well.
All right, well, let me put it this way to you, because there's going to be a lot of Kanji fans who are listening to this, those who are on her side in this ongoing debate about Kanji, and they'll be angry at the suggestion that maybe she doesn't deserve to be champion, right? So let me put it this way to you: what can Kanji do now to force the issue, if you like, to force people to see her as a deserving champion?
She's maybe going to need to string together a number of victories for a start, and more importantly, she's going to have to do it over female wrestlers that the world finds credible. You know, that's quite a subjective argument, but she's going to have to find a way to earn the credibility of the people, rightly or wrongly. In my opinion, you know, who cares what the people think? She's the champion. She's getting the money for being that champion. Who cares what the people think? But the way the world is now with social media, and more pertinently the way social media is with pro wrestling, that credibility with fans goes a long, long way in the eyes of so many. I think that's affecting Kanji, because she's grown up in this era where that is so important. So I think that's definitely affecting her mindset right now, maybe played into the loss against Lizzie Styles. To answer your question bluntly, just keep doing what you're doing. She's obviously talented. She's the champion. She came out of nowhere to do it. Is she a flash in the pan? I'm not sure. Only time will tell. The only thing Kanji can do is keep stringing together those victories and shut people up.
Well, you say keep stringing them together. She hasn't won a match, I don't think, since she became champion. You know, she won her debut and then she won that 6-person gauntlet, which was, you know, incredible, granted. But then since then, she's had the match against Lana Austin, which she technically won by disqualification, but didn't really beat Austin. It was because Austin used a weapon that the match was thrown out. And then obviously she's lost to Styles. So I think if Kanji wants to, you know, silence all those naysayers, then what she needs to do is, if she gets a rematch against Lizzie Styles, which presumably might be on the cards given that Styles beat her, she's going to have to obviously beat Styles. If B. Priestley, having beaten Lana Austin, is now going to turn her attention back to the women's title that she believes is rightfully hers, then Kanji's got to beat B. Priestley. I mean, it's a huge thing to ask, but obviously she's going to have to do that, right? She's going to have to get a signature one-on-one victory, as you say, against one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, whoever it is, and we have several in Defiant who would, you know, fall under that description, before a proper majority, there's going to be a proper consensus behind the fact that she's a deserving champion. You
might be right. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But from Kanji's perspective, I honestly believe she's in a better position than people might think. You know, that was a non-title match. And yes, it's not ideal to lose any match, especially when you're a champion. People start asking questions. But, you know, she has the benefit of the fact that that match against Lizzie Styles on Loaded was a non-title bout. Now, she has to take that and file it somewhere in her brain, and just, you know, use the pain of that defeat to spur her on, because she's going to have some super important matches coming up. You know, if it is B. Priestley, or if it's Roxy, or whoever it is, maybe it's Lizzie Styles again. Kanji is going to have to be, she's going to have to bring her A game. And I do agree with you on one thing. If she comes up against B. Priestley, she must win. And there's a simple reason for that, and there's only one reason for that. Well, there's two. She holds on to her title, but the main one being, that would shut everyone up. If she can beat someone the caliber of B. Priestley, if Kanji can do that, it will shut everyone up. Suddenly those tweets, they'll dry up. You won't get all these people sniggering about, you know, she doesn't deserve to be the champ, blah, blah, blah. It'll all go away. And that's what she has to do, exorcise that demon. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she doesn't need a winning streak. Maybe all she needs is that one marquee victory to say, listen, I'm the champ, shut up, I'm here, and I'll be here for as long as I damn well please.
All right, well, we are out of time, but obviously we'll see how this situation in the women's division develops as we head into Loaded this Sunday, and what a night it's going to be on Sunday, as well as Lizzie Styles taking on Roxy. The No Fun title, as we said, will be defended as No Fun Done goes one-on-one against Lucky Kid. And of course, in that non-title tag team spectacular, the tag team champions Aussie Open against Team White Wolf. All of that and more on Loaded this Sunday at 8 PM UK time on the Defiant YouTube channel. If you want to come and see Defiant live, we have many opportunities for you to do that coming up in the near future. This coming Saturday, the 16th, we are taping more episodes of Loaded, including the one I was just talking about. So that's in Newcastle this Saturday, the 16th of February. Plus, we're headed all around the UK. We're going to be in Sunderland for the next big pay-per-view that we're running. That's the Magnificent 7. That's on March 16th. And then in April, we're in Leeds for Lights Out on April 17th. Tickets for all of those events, Newcastle, Sunderland, and Leeds at wearedefiant.com/tickets. All right, that is just about it. What's ahead in the rest of your week other than Loaded on Sunday?
Well, for me, I've got a super busy week coming up. I'm going to be sorting out my new jackets alphabetically. My sock drawer needs a right good going through as well. I've also been busy, Dave, seeing my new girlfriend as well. Yeah, well, I might as well say it now. I was going to leave it till the social media bit. But you can follow her on Twitter at Margot Robbie. That's at Margot Robbie. And she's been so busy filming, she's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Birds of Prey. And I haven't really had much time to see her since we started dating. But it is what it is.
Yeah,
and I've been busy anyway.
You've never even met her, in fact. That's how busy. That's how busy you've both been.
Hang on. We shared a red carpet kiss. And also, I've been a busy man anyway. I mean, I've had to make you look good on commentary at Unstoppable. I've had such a busy time of it. But yes, at Margot Robbie. And if you want to follow me, it's at Top Class Kennedy.
Well, I have an interesting week ahead as well as Loaded, of course. I'm actually finalising some evidence I've been trying to get together about this ongoing drama. Well, it's an ongoing injustice. Let's call it what it is. An injustice about the Commentator of the Year award. I promise
not this again.
Fresh evidence. Well, I'm going to present some more evidence next week, which I'm sending over to General Amin. So I'll save that for next week. You can sweat about that for the next 7 days. But needless to say, I'm not letting this go because injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere.
You don't have any... I'm telling you, this is a conspiracy. Now, granted, you weren't bluffing about getting General Amin onto this podcast. I'll give you that. You came through on that. But you keep harping on about this evidence. You don't have any evidence. That's why you're stalling.
You ever been to Moscow?
A couple of times.
All right. Well, then we'll talk about that next week. Anyway,
what's that got to do with anything?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Dave Bradshaw. Don't forget, by the way, if you haven't seen Unstoppable yet and you want to, access.wearedefiant.com, where you can see that and all of our past pay-per-views as well. And if you're a new customer, you get a 30-day free trial when you sign up. That's access.wearedefiant.com. All right, we're out of time. We will see you this Sunday for Loaded, and then of course we'll be back here again with you on the podcast next week for James R. Kennedy. This is Dave Bradshaw saying thank you for listening to ReLoaded.